to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello and welcome to another Be Awesome podcast episode. I'm your host, Joshua Peach. It's been a while. I've been on a crazy tour, 42 flights in 49 days and all sorts of stuff going on. And before I get started, people often ask me, how do you do it? And, I got 3 companies going on. I've got keynotes I'm doing, a book that I wrote, all this stuff. And it's a lot of things that people say you or I, and it's not you or I. And today's podcast is a pure example of that. It's we. And I got to give a huge shout out to Adam Carrero. Every single episode that I come in to record, he's got his Be Awesome t-shirt on. And he's always thinking about how to do the next thing or what we can do. Or he pays so much attention to what I like and what would make my day. And he found it, and it's in today's guest. For those that don't know, I was a child in the 80s growing up watching a show called Chronicle with my parents, and I watch it basically to this day. On occasion, I cut the cord, so I have to watch it on YouTube, but I've always been a huge fan. I'll get into why of Chronicle. And today we have one of their journalists, producers, end all be all did all for Chronicle. So I'm kind of like in a nervous about this one a little bit, but we've got Ted Reinstein on here, and we're going to talk about his number of books, which I was able to get 2 of them. And I dug in a little bit. New England's general stores. We're going to talk general stores because I love those, and then travel through the heart and soul of New England. So without further ado, Ted, thank you for joining us today.
That's my pleasure. Thank you so much for that. I was going to say, that number of flights in that number of days, your arms must be really tired.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm leaving here. By the time this airs, I will be leaving here after this recording, heading to the airport, going to Tampa for 2 days for an event, home for a day, and then off to Anchorage, Alaska for an event for 3 days, and home home for the holidays. So yeah,
so you got some frequent flyer miles, huh?
I do. Actually, we've got a little got 2 boys, 2 sons. You have 2 daughters, right?
I do.
Okay, so yeah, so we're two polar opposites here.
Yeah.
You had girls that are responsible and can babysit each other at the age of 6. I've got 18 and 7, and they're a little different. So they're awesome though. And but my kids have something I gave them a couple of years ago is when they graduate high school, they can go anywhere they want in the world. They just have to use all my miles. So I accumulated. I had over.
But see, at the end of the day, Dad has still paid for it.
Yes,
so that's
100%.
The thing.
Yeah, I paid for it in coach seats.
Right.
It was funny that my oldest is he's an artist, so he wanted to go to Rome. So we went to Rome.
Good place for
and
that.
He used every single one of the million miles for flagship, lie flat, seat, round trip, first class for the family of 4. So I got to see.
I see you're also raising a really smart kid.
Yeah, I got to see. I got to see what first class feels like, and it was.
Yeah, it's like how the other half lives.
Yeah, most people think that's all you do. When you get to do that on occasion. But today I'm flying to Florida. I'll be flying coach. Alaska.
I always say the only time in my life when I have flown occasionally first class, it's always been somebody else paying for it. It's just not something I would ever pay for.
Yeah,
but it'd be great. But
yeah, last year we flew to Texas for a couple of days for an event that I brought my family to, and so my oldest is 6'6", and my youngest is 7, so he's 4 foot nothing, and so my oldest I got one upgraded seat for me, and I gave it to my oldest because he's bigger and taller and more comfortable, and so my youngest Chance, when we were booking the flight, he says, "Hey, Papa, you remember when we went to Texas last year and you gave Danny the first class seat?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I've been thinking a lot, and I think that you and Danny should fly coach to Rome, and Mama and I should fly first class." And I said, "Well, I was going to get 4 first class seats, but now I think I'm only going to get 3." At 7, he was smart enough to say you wouldn't do that to me. So, which I didn't. But we have a lot of fun with that stuff. So, but
that's funny.
Yeah. No, it is. But you with Chronicle, you just covered New England, right? I mean, there was an occasional, I can remember, I think a Bahamas episode, or I think something rare,
Hmm.
if I remember correctly, and I could be
So,
wrong.
in terms of the history of the show, in the first 2 decades, it's four now, but in the first two, almost 3 decades, um, Chronicle really did a number of pieces that were all over the world.
Yeah,
There were the very memorable week that the show spent in China at a time when it was still, that's how long the show's been on, when it still
yeah,
wasn't as opened up as it is today. So that would have been in the early 80s. The Middle East, really all over the world. I've traveled with Chronicle. I'm trying to think out of the country. I mean, Canada, Mexico, several places around the country.
yeah,
Certainly the West Coast several times, and in the American South. But you're right. But the vast majority of the shows traveling, and certainly my own, is New England.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I do, like I said, I do vaguely remember outside of New England, but it was like the Tank Away episodes, the treehouse, staying in the tree houses in Connecticut episode. Like you would go to these places that were just really interesting that I knew nothing about. And I think that's probably what was the
Yeah.
sticking point was New England's such a small microcosm of the country. Like,
Mm.
I go to Texas and they'll drive 4 hours to get milk. And we drive
Right?
4 hours and we get to Canada, right? And so
Yeah. It,
thinking that,
it's it's completely different. Somebody says, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's funny you say that because I always use that as the same. My mom's side of the family, Midwest. So same thing, right?
yeah,
They'll be like going out to dinner and the drive is only an hour.
yeah,
That's like a short, it's like nothing.
it-
And here you wouldn't think of driving an hour to dinner in New England.
no,
Like, are you kidding me?
yeah, yeah,
It's like, but yeah, completely different sense of
yeah.
perspective
Well, I mean,
in New England.
Alaska's twice the landmass of Texas
There
and
you
less the
go.
population than Rhode Island.
Yeah,
So,
crazy.
and so what was always amazing to me was how much we have in New England in such a short distance of where we can go. And where I am on the South Shore, and I think you're closer to Boston, but being on the South Shore, we're perfect for Cape Cod, Providence, Boston, the Berkshires, the White Mountains, the Green Mountains. Um, it's really just I, we hear people complain about New England in a lot of different ways, and taxes and all these different things. But we really are probably some of the most fortunate people in the country for what we have for resources and things to do and places to be and things
Right.
to see, right?
I
And
think that the landscape itself, the geography for New England is priceless in terms of, and I use that word advisedly because everything else you said is also true of New England.
yeah,
It is among Boston is top three, and it is among the most expensive places to live in the entire country. So you pay for that. But the only other region in America that has what New England has in terms of everything you just mentioned, a close proximity to the ocean, the mountains, the farmland, to the waterfronts, to all of that, the only other place that comes close really is the Northwest.
yeah,
The Northwest, the Seattle area. They have the mountains, they have the ocean. You can be at the ocean in the morning, you can be in the mountains in 3 hours. But you pay for that, right?
yeah,
I mean, that's also an expensive real estate market. But you're absolutely right. Being close to all of that contrast, you're a local guy. I mean, I always say, people will say, like, what would be your favorite day trip? And the thing is, in a day trip in New England, you could literally surf in the morning, ski in the afternoon.
yep,
In the meantime, you'd be covering farmland, meadows, cities, small towns, all in between. And you can do that not in 24 hours, you can do that in 8 hours.
yeah.
It's a lot of driving, but
You
you
can
could do it.
also walk and watch the Boston Marathon, catch a Red Sox game, and if the Celtics or the Bruins did all right, go to a playoff game and walk to it all, which
And
is
on what day can you do that, Josh? What day?
a
There's only one
marathon
day you
Monday.
could do all that. You got
Marathon
it.
Monday. That's it. That's it. So
That's
uh,
sports nirvana day
I
in New
did,
England.
yeah, I did 2 out of 3 one year, and
No
it's just,
kidding.
yeah, ticket, yeah, it takes a lot. I had tickets to the third. It was the Celtics, I think, were playing off, playoff game. It was almost twice, close to 20 years ago.
You know, my
And
favorite line about that day in New England is it's a line that Dan Shaughnessy used years and years ago. But I remember reading it and throwing my head back and laughing out loud because, Boston fans just get it. He'd say, it's the only place where you could see a Red Sox game and then walk out after the game to Kenmore Square and watch people running and puking.
yeah.
By the way, the puking is just the Red Sox fans after the loss at Fenway Park.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And Adam and I actually were able to do both of those inside Fenway Park last year because we did a Spartan race on Veterans Day
Oh
weekend
my
every
God,
year.
did you really? I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. Yep. We did. We actually ran it with the founder, Joe DeSena. He invited me
No
and
kidding. Have you
brought
done
me and my
any of
friend.
those anywhere else?
No, it was actually we were on his podcast. So back battle, I listened to Joe. What's the other one? Joe Rogan. Got to forget the number one podcaster, Joe Rogan. I listened to in 2020. It was actually the week of what would have been my grandfather's 100th birthday. It was actually his birthday. I'm listening to this episode. I'm not paying attention. It was a bad time. COVID was awful. Be Awesome was essentially going out of business, and I lost 39 paid keynotes. And I really didn't know what I was doing. And I was happened to listen to Joe Rogan's podcast. And there's this guy talking about how he had to cancel 350 events and he lost all these tens of millions of dollars and all this stuff. And he says, and I had chickens shipped to the post office. And I'm like, man, I think I'm the only person I know that ships chickens to the post office because you order them in Missouri and they ship them like 2 days old and you go pick
You
them
do
up.
the same thing?
I did, yeah. And so he's giving me all these relatable things. And I said to myself, this was in 2020. I'm like, I'm going to meet this guy someday. I have to. We're like kindred. I didn't know who he
Yeah.
was. I didn't know who he was, what he did. I just knew he lost a whole lot more than I did. He was staying resilient and he got chickens at the post office. And so on May 3rd or May 5th, I'm flying back from an event in Colorado and I just get this email and it says Joe DeSena wants you on his podcast. And I didn't even look to see, I just knew the name. And I said,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so pursued, ended up getting on his podcast in August. And every episode he does, he invites the guest to be on to do a Spartan race with him, free of charge. Bring you and your friends, do it free of charge. So we start talking and he says something. And I said, oh, do you want me to run a Spartan race? He says, no. Because I told him I must have been the first fat, overweight, out of shape person he had on his podcast because he has Navy SEALs and all these people. I'm like, I don't even know where he found me.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, no. You just come, take in all the energy and everything, right? Adam, was it 3 times? 3 times I actually tried to invite myself. And finally I said, I'm going to run a race with you. And he's like, huh? I said, I'm going to do a Spartan race. He's like, all right, you and your friends all come for free. So what we did was I said, instead of doing it for free, we're going to raise money because it's Veterans Day, we're going to raise money for Holidays for the Heroes, flies active military home for the holidays or for a special event, birth of a child or something. And he goes, man, that's awesome. You run with me. So we did it. We were there at, I don't know, 5 o'clock or something, right? It was 5
Was
in
this
the
at
morning.
Fenway Park?
Yeah. last Veterans Day.
Wow.
And yeah, Adam videotaped it. And
How
11,
long does
12
it
my friends.
take to run something like that?
A normal
Spartan
person or me?
Yeah, I'll take either one.
So our fastest person was he 35, 36 minutes. Nick was cooking.
Oh, it's
And then
quick.
we were about an hour and 5 minutes,
Yeah.
something like that.
Because you're
And
covering all these obstacles, right?
yeah, 25 or 30 ops.
Yeah.
It's for me to do it. It was dumb. I was ready to die. I was just like, I
Did
give
he have
up.
the big tires?
Not
The
at that
huge
one.
tire?
No, they
Not
didn't
at
have any
that one.
big tires, but they had
Yeah.
100-pound sandbags and
Yeah,
pull
yeah.
up
But you
and
got to lift
oh,
stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then he invited me to his farm this summer for another event, and I was like, I wanted to go, but I had this crazy schedule, and I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I actually get excited at the idea of doing this stuff. He's got this like magical force field he puts on you. He's like, you can do it. You will
What's his
do
name?
it.
Joe DeSena?
Joe DeSena. Yeah.
Yeah? No, I never heard of him.
Yeah. He's the author of The Hard Way. No, not The Hard Way. I think his podcast is The Hard Way. He's got a couple of different books. He's got a whole bunch of stuff. And he's an amazing human being. He truly cares about the health and well-being of the human race. He's just a cool guy.
Where's he from? Is he from this area?
He's from New York originally. He's from Queens.
Uh-huh.
but he lived in Boston for,
Nobody's perfect.
yeah, he lived in Boston for a while and
Yeah.
was in the stock market, did a bunch of stuff, and then he's got a farm in Vermont, and his house now is in Florida, his full-time house. But he
Wow,
travels.
what an interesting guy.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Hmm.
There you go. Somebody to interview.
There
Yeah.
you go.
So,
For all I know, he's been on Chronicle. Probably.
I don't think so.
No?
No, I don't.
Hmm.
I don't. Maybe he has. I'll have to look that up after. Now
Yeah.
it's like back to the day.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah.
So, so you did all this cool stuff, and then you start
Still
writing
doing
books.
it.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, when did you start writing the books? Because you've got like 5 or 6.
I've got 5 at work on my 6th, and I started doing it about 13 years ago, Josh. About 13 years ago. It's about 2012.
And you
Um,
started in the TV side in like the
oh, definitely.
90s, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, late 80s even.
Hmm.
And the books came much later, partly because it took a while. I hadn't really thought about, oh, I want to write a book. But what happened was over the years of doing feature stories for Chronicle, I started to I started to feel often frustrated that I'd come back and I would have spent, let's say, a week away somewhere, or even just a great shoot over the course of a day with somebody and their story. And I started to feel frustrated more and more that because television is such a sort of restrictive
Yeah.
means of communication. The average news story, I always tell people, and they never guess the right guess. They always guess it's more. The average time now of the average news story has shrunk to a minute and 18 seconds.
Wow.
So a minute and 18 seconds is how many times a reporter, a broadcast journalist is dealing with how to tell a story in a minute and 18 seconds. Good luck.
Hmm.
So in Chronicle, by contrast, we have a much bigger luxury in terms of time. I mean, we get 4, 5+ minutes,
Hmm.
for each segment to tell a story. So that's still doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah.
I always laugh because people will say to me, they've never um, been interviewed or anything before, which is most people, and they'll say, so when this airs, I'm just curious, this will what, like 5 or 10 minutes, and like uh less than half that. You
Yeah.
can always see this look on their face, like what? But the frustration came about because it is so restrictive in terms of timing. I just gradually had this feeling, and there's no way around it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way it is. That's the way it is. But I would feel more and more like I was leaving all this great stuff, like on the cutting room floor, as they say, although there's no cutting. And I would feel like, wow, there's so much good stuff, and that would accumulate so that over years, I'd say, and I kept everything. I keep, notes. I keep
Hmm.
folders of people and their interviews, and um, I realized at a certain point that I was sitting on a lot of good stuff that had never been shared.
Yeah.
And that's where that came from. So to your question, that's where that came from. I started to feel like, the only way that I can share more of this is something that has a longer format,
Yeah. And
and
that you
that would
control.
be, yeah. And then I control it and I can write it. And I thankfully, I should say, I mean, my 2 favorite parts of being a broadcast journalist is interviewing people, but writing is my
Yeah.
favorite. So fortunately, I loved and still love to write. So to look at doing this in a much longer format didn't phase me. I still thought like, wow, that'll take a lot to fill a book, but that's where that came from. I just wanted to see if I could potentially, um, be able to share stories in a much longer format than
Yeah.
television.
Yeah. That's really cool because, I'll tell you that I think one of the reasons that I joked about it when we started, my family was a big news family. My
Mhm.
grandparents were Portuguese immigrants, and they got
Where'd
the
you
port.
grow up?
I grew up in South Shore, but I'm first born here. My family all grew up, was born in Madeira. So my
Okay.
my my mother and my grandparents and my mother's brother all grew up in an island off the coast of Morocco.
Sure. Hmm.
And so, and my father was he read the Herald and the Globe, and I would tell him like, Dad, why are you reading those two polar opposite views of the newspaper? And he's like, well, this you read both, and then somewhere in the middle is probably what the real story is.
Wise man.
And he did that with the news too. Like he would watch all the different channels and everything else. And so,
Hmm.
in the 80s and 90s, you had ATV in the house, and so 6 o'clock the news was on, and you were watching, all of the bad that goes on in the world, right? And then we joked, I loved Wheel of Fortune, but I was terrible at Jeopardy. And I'll get you a copy of my book if you want it. But I'm a like, graduated high school in just 5 years. So the curriculum and knowledge was not my thing. I was good at Wheel of Fortune, and I was a fan of Pat Sajak and Vanna White,
Hmm.
how they work together. But turned Jeopardy off and went to Chronicle, and it was like the news, but it wasn't, and it was almost always good stories, and it was almost
Mm.
it always came across, and I'm sure that there was probably a lot to this. The interviews were always genuine, caring, and they didn't seem scripted. It just seemed like a conversation was happening with someone, right? It just seemed like
Mm.
it seemed like you pulled off the road inquisitive about this, say a general store, and you walked in
Mm.
and you saw the owner, and you started talking around the wood stove, and next thing you know,
Mm.
you've got this story, and it just seemed really cool.
That's a really That's a really great observation, and it's one that I really particularly appreciate. Not just for me, I mean, on behalf of, I think, Chronicles, legacy, people that are still here and doing it, but
Yeah.
certainly its legacy, because I think everything you described is something that we pride ourselves on.
Yeah.
First of all, starting with your observation about these, watching the news and seeing all the doom and gloom and blood and gore, and then Chronicle.
Yeah.
Um, and I always say that, I've done some news, not a lot, and but I'm around it, and I've been around it for a long time, and that's its own challenge. I take nothing away from
Yeah.
hard news and journalists and reporters who do that, and producers, because it's completely its own challenge, and in its own way, it's just as challenging. It's a completely different kind of challenge, but it's also completely different kind of context. And I always say, the main difference between Chronicle and news in terms as a journalist is that when we hear a chronicle, or arrive at someone's door,
Hmm.
they're actually happy to see us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's often not the case, and it's not the journalist's fault, but that's a challenge you have to deal with, is that you are often dealing with people at their absolute worst, at the absolute worst time, the worst circumstances,
Yeah.
and nonetheless, your job is to get there and do the story. So that's its own challenge. We, as I say, we get to actually work in an environment where people are happy to see us.
Yeah.
We get to tell. I always use my mentor at Chronicle, Peter Mahegan, and Peter would always say, he said, people ask me what's a Chronicle. I say it's very simple. We tell the stories of New England.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. And
Mhm.
it's 100% right. I've never deviated from describing it the same way. And I like your observation too about that it seems unscripted, and that people are enjoying talking to us. Now, I will say that, we're usually not airing the interviews where it was really awful, like hitting your
Yeah.
head against the wall.
Yeah.
And so you're not seeing that as much. That happens too. But you're absolutely right for the most part. Um, and everybody's different. Every producer, every reporter and journalist is different. But I
Hmm.
think that we all share the sort of basic credo, which is that you've probably spent a fair amount of time. I know I do. fair amount of time researching, finding stories that are unique and different. I always say if a story is coming by way of a press release, a promotions person, a chamber of commerce, a tourist brochure, it's not going through my hands.
Yeah.
It's not landing with me. Those are great. We're not telling stories for tourists. We're telling stories for people who appreciate life in New England, the stories of New England. And so you spend a fair amount of time just finding and ferreting out those interesting stories. It may be a general store. And from the first contact with that person about the story's about, I think is where that is where that starts, because, it starts from a place of respect. I'm not paying this person for their time.
Right.
They're giving me their time. Time is precious. Their life is precious. Their privacy is special. What they're sharing, especially if it's something that may be difficult, something that involved hardship or tragedy or sacrifice, shame.
Mhm.
Those things are, you have to receive that with great respect.
Yeah.
Great respect. I would do the same for you and me if we were talking, right? That's just human. But that's how it starts. And then by the time I actually, arrive somewhere and we've set up a time and a place and we're going to meet and we're going to talk, and there's some connection
Yeah.
that's been established. There's some respect that's
Yeah.
been established. And I always make sure that I have plenty of time. I don't, again, completely different in news. Boom, helicopter in, boom, you drop in, got to
Yeah.
get the story, got to get it filed in an hour and a half. There's no time for any kind of real connection. Again, no aspersion on that.
Yeah.
That's the challenge of news, and it's tough. It's hard to do that. I'm glad I don't have to,
Yeah.
but it's hard to do that. But by the time I get to meeting somebody and sitting down to do an interview, and I always make sure that I build in enough time that in the schedule that there's half hour, an hour to just arrive somewhere. I like to just see about, if I'm sitting in someone's living room, to notice pictures and ask them, and we get to talking. And in terms of bringing back the stories we come back with, I always say, everybody has stories to tell.
Mhm.
Every human being has a story to tell. And everyone in general wants to tell their story. There may be parts of their story that they don't want to tell for good reason. All of us, have things that we don't necessarily want to share with other people. But for the most part, everybody has something about their life, their story that they want to share. It could be
Mhm.
a sibling, a wife, a grandparent, a war story, a story of coming back, of hardship. But everybody has a story they want to tell. If you tap into somebody and you express an interest in hearing their story just for the sake of hearing their story, and you show that you have the time and the interest to sit down and really hear it
Yep.
in the way they want to share it, then you come back with the kind of interviews that you're describing, where it seems like there's no script.
Yeah. And that's it. I flipped through the book a little bit. I mean, I literally just ordered them on Amazon. It took 2 days, I guess, because of Black
Mhm.
Friday. Must
Yeah.
have flying off the shelves.
Which
But
book was that?
I got the Heart and Soul.
Yep, the new one.
Travel
Mhm.
travel through the Heart and Soul
Yep.
of New England,
Yep.
General Stores, and then I'm gonna get the other ones. I'm gonna get the other ones next. I'm gonna get through them, and I'm not an avid reader. You only have one that's on Audible.
I
So
know, it's crazy.
yeah,
And
we're
what's
just
crazier is I'd be happy to narrate them,
yeah.
but that's not my choice.
Yeah, we're just finishing up my Audible. We just got Santa Claus's did the forward. I have Santa Claus, the only person legally named Santa Claus in North Pole, Alaska. He did the forward for me. And
Where in Alaska is he from?
North Pole.
Is that an actual town in
Yeah, yeah.
Alaska?
Yeah, he's
Is that right?
he's city councilor, yeah. So my brain is my brain is a completely mishmash place of a mess. And when I started this podcast and just we've done 100 and I don't know, 120 episodes or something. There's only one episode that hasn't. There's two episodes actually that haven't aired. One, the building got struck by lightning in the middle of it and messed up the audio, and the other one was just a one
That's a good excuse.
we didn't publish. But every other one we've published with limited. The first 80 or 90 I did without Adam. I did it under my peach tree. I did it remote in hotel rooms. I did it at the city council chambers in North Pole,
Good
Alaska.
for you. You got to be
Um,
inventive and creative
and
then.
so, yeah, so the first two episodes I did on a TV dinner tray under a peach tree. Chance was less than a year old. I launched to be awesome. And I went into the house and episodes 1 and 2, don't watch them. Don't listen to them. They're terrible. I'm not saying this for you to listen to them because they're, they're just not good.
And you know what? I guarantee in their own way, if I did,
Yeah.
there's something that's magical
Yeah.
that will never be recaptured. Because when you do something because you have to find a way to do it and
Yeah.
it's not ideal circumstances, there's some magic that
Oh
happens.
yeah. 100%. And
Whatever the pursuit is in life.
well, this was the trigger was I went in after the second one and I said to my fiance Amy, she's known me since 1988 or 1989, forever. And I was like, man, I stink. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm terrible at podcasting. I'm good at other things, but being a podcast host and your having a podcast, which was a great at the time, great platform. It wasn't widely used. You could get market share and understanding, good for branding, all that stuff. I learned how to do it all, and I wanted to do it my way. And she says, well, maybe you just need a guest. Maybe you need somebody to break up you. And I was like, wow, that's probably a good idea. And so,
Was she volunteering?
no, she just told me, in my travels, I probably have some great people that could be on the podcast. And so I was literally going to Fairbanks, Alaska in a couple of weeks from that point. And my brain triggered. And I'm like, I remember reading a newspaper article. I've been to Alaska now 26 times. So,
Wow.
I said, I remember reading a newspaper article recently about a city councilor named Santa Claus in North Pole, Alaska. He's got to have a story.
I would say.
I contacted City Hall Chambers, no luck. Got his email, no luck. I chased him down, and finally I got him on the phone. And he's like, no, I don't think I want to do a podcast. And he had 250,000 followers on Facebook. Like he was legit, and nobody really knew of him. And yet still people didn't really know him. Ran for president twice. Didn't make the primaries, obviously, but
Obviously.
got all these peace prizes and everything else. And the long story short is he is a Christian monk. He was a former police officer in New York City, turned Christian monk,
What a fascinating background.
living in Nevada, doing his morning prayers, looking for a sign and how to advocate for children in dire straits around the world. Went out to check his mail, get his newspaper. A guy drives by and says, "Good morning, Santa," because he looked like Santa Claus, what you would think Santa Claus, big long white beard, heavy set guy. And so he packed his bags, changed his name legally to Santa Claus, and he spent the last 20 years or so advocating for kids in dire straits around the world. He's part of the Sahara Club and he lives a life of minimalism.
Wow.
So he takes public
What a great
transportation.
story.
Yeah. So I met him, city council
Did
chambers.
he do your podcast finally?
He did it in July of 2018.
No
I
kidding.
did my homework and found that there are actually 3 million children in the United States today that are underserved, homeless, foster care, abusive families, roughly 3 million kids. And so when I met him, I didn't have t-shirts. We started selling t-shirts and we initiated giving $3 of every t-shirt.
By the way, I love the
Good.
t-shirt.
Gonna get your address. We'll get you a whole care package of stuff. So
Oh no, because
Um,
I love how you did that with the periodic
again, 5 years, 5 years of high school. It's amazing.
Well,
and
chemistry's stuck anyway.
Oh yeah, well you get the chemists and they go, why would you mix those together? And I go, because it's awesome, and they still don't get it. So
Oh, that's funny. My dad would have loved that. He was a clinical chemist.
yeah, they
No, I know AU is gold.
yeah, beryllium, gold,
Beryllium.
and samarium.
Samarium. Is that a relatively new
No,
samarium?
I believe samarium is I get them mixed up. I think samarium is the magnet that's used in gyroscopes primarily. It's one of the things
That's
that's
brilliant for the
Yeah.
t-shirt
Yeah.
and the word.
Yeah, my book, everything. And then I have You Are Awesome as well. And I own Periodic Elements in the Patent and Trademark Office, which is pretty cool. So thanks for listening to another episode of the Be Awesome podcast. If you are enjoying our episodes, please give us a 5-star rating review on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts. Those ratings and reviews do make a difference in helping us get more exposure, more listeners, as well as giving people an insight and understanding as to what they could expect when they listen to our episodes. Thanks again, and you are awesome. But yeah, no, Santa and I stayed friends actually in 2023 at Christmas time. He called me and he said, "Josh, when you come up in July of 24, I want you to bring a suitcase, an extra suitcase." And I'm like, you live a life of minimalism. How big a suitcase you want? Like, what are you going to give me? And I would never ask him for anything. And so
Right.
he said, I'm 77 years old. I've lost 100 pounds, and this year is going to be the last year I wear my Santa Claus outfit. And so last July, I now can say that I own the only Santa Claus outfit that was owned, worn, and lived in by the only person legally named Santa Claus in North Pole, Alaska.
Gave you the suit.
Yeah, gave me the suit.
You got a big beard. Have you ever played Santa?
I I wore it last year. I'll wear it again this year in Anchorage.
Ah,
But I'm the young Santa. I'm not fully gray yet. So, but I do have a
well,
beard.
you whiten it up.
I have a white beard. Yeah, I'm just afraid it
Yeah.
won't, I'm afraid it won't go back.
You
But
know, it's funny. Speaking of Santa, I did a story that was so much fun a few years ago. It was, um, and there are many groups like this, but this is Eastern Massachusetts. The group of they have a name, but they're professional Santas. I mean, they
Mhm,
do this year round. This is their
mhm.
full-time job. And I attended a day-long. This went on for a weekend, but I spent a day in southern New Hampshire at their summer Santa retreat and seminars, and
Oh,
it's just all day long.
yep.
You name the area of Santa, practices, they were doing it. Best way to disengage from a kid pulling your beard,
Hmm.
always go with it.
Yeah,
Always go with it because otherwise, if it's not real, they'll pull it off or it'll hurt. But
right.
always go with the pull. Go with the pull. I remember.
Yeah. A little known fact that Santa shared with me is that ho 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 actually scares kids, and
Does
yet we
it?
still do it, and we haven't come up with something else. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
study that was done that said that like a very high percentage of children, when Santa Claus does ho ho ho, and it's like Christmas story movie, like when he comes up ho ho ho, the kid's terrified and he doesn't know what to say. Yeah, so he won't say that, and
That's funny.
he's Santa Claus, not in the form of the guy that goes down in the chimney. Um, St. Nicholas, the provider of giving all that is love
The
and caring.
historic
Yeah,
Santa.
it's not the
Yeah.
material side of things. It's not the ho 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 thing. He wears the suit and he looks the
Yeah.
part,
It's
but
not the Madison Ave Santa,
yeah,
the actual historic Santa.
he's not bringing the new Switch 2 to you for Christmas. It's just not, yeah. So, I got to tell you, this has been great. We got about 2 minutes, and I've got
Yeah.
about 7,000 questions to ask you, but
Well, fire
I want to be
away.
cognizant of your time, and I'd love to have you back again because this has been
Sure.
great.
No, I'd love to. This went
Um,
like so fast.
yeah, well, I mean, that's when you have fun in the Be Awesome studio,
Right?
you just rock and roll and strut and
Yeah, no,
stroll.
I'd be happy to.
So let's talk about this. I wanted to talk about this book a little bit real quick because
The new
it's
one?
the new one. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, how did you choose? You've got thousands of stories in here, and you've got
Mm.
a little bit, you got diners and you got a lot of Is it all diners?
No.
No, it's not all diners. I just
No,
flipped to three.
the diners were so diners have been for a long, long time a staple of my stories traveling around New England. Never the entire, show, but always because diners, like public libraries, like general stores, they're community gathering places. And
Yeah.
that's what makes them so special. I always say to people, it- for me, diners have nothing to do with food. I
Yep.
mean, listen, I want a good home, a great home cooked breakfast as much as anybody, but it's not the food. It's the fact that they're places where communities gather.
Hmm.
That's what makes them important. That's why I go there. I find out a lot of great stories in diners because
Hmm.
of the same reason, because everybody in any given town where there's a diner goes to the diner. So
Yep.
that's why the diners come in. Just to
Yep.
wrap up, the book is the new book is a book that is a real debt of gratitude to me because the book is only about the most memorable people and the most memorable stories that I've covered in my now 30 years of traveling around New England, and that's all it's about. So it's their stories, the people that really I feel like in some ways made what I did not only possible, but to any extent there was any quality to it, it's because of those people and their stories, and that's what that book represents.
Yeah. And the next book, are you letting out any secrets of what it's going to be about?
I will tell you that the next book represents you. If you talk, I just said something about a cliff. The next
Yeah.
book represents is something of it feels like a cliff to me because often to the great unknown. The next book that I'm working on right now is my first foray into fiction,
Okay.
and it's a mystery, a New England-based mystery based in Vermont. and it's completely different for me. But it's based. The funny thing is, we were talking about general stores and diners. All of that stuff is very much a part of the book because
Yeah.
what I've created a fictional town in Vermont,
Yeah.
and it is peopled with all the stuff I love about New England, except one of them dies. But that's all I'm going to say,
Yeah.
Josh. So
Yeah.
don't push me on
One
this.
dies. I'm not going to push you. I'm gonna stay on the edge of my seat till that comes out. So, so
Well,
let's.
it's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, I was going to
No,
say
seriously.
this has been an absolute honor. Something I've been
Yeah.
looking forward to since Adam set this all up. I was like, "You
No, I'm
serious?"
so glad you guys did. I had
Yeah.
no idea what to expect. I had no idea except that I did sure these guys seem like nice guys and they that's a kind invitation, but I'm so glad I did. I'm
Yeah,
so glad I did because it's very professional and you yourself you sound like you have your own amazing life story
I would go with
and really good to
semi-professional.
talk to.
Yeah, Adam is extremely professional. I'm semi-professional. The truth is, we've built our podcast has zero real preparation. So I bought the books, I scanned them, but I didn't do a whole lot of digging. I went through my memory banks. One of the most memorable Chronicle episodes, by the way, was my dad was a funny guy, Vietnam helicopter pilot, guy's guy. And so, oftentimes a man of few words. And we were watching Chronicle one night, and the Building 19 episode came on, and that guy was kind of quirky and interesting.
He was very quirky.
And so he comes on, and my dad just looks at me and goes, "See that rug right there? We got that at Building 19. You never saw such a place." And it took me years to actually realize that on the front of that building there was a sign with a picture of a sausage that said, "You never saw such a place." And it was my dad's attempt at humor with a at the time teenager.
Oh, that's funny, but you didn't get it at the moment.
I didn't get it, and I was like, "Oh my God." And I drove by one day randomly. I'm like, "That was my dad. You never saw such a place."
I sat in a living room with him and his wife once.
Yeah.
And when you describe him as a quirky guy,
Yeah.
that's the least of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I could only imagine. I mean, you guys were in his condo. This wasn't in the water.
Yes.
This was a long time ago.
It was a long
The
time
fact that I
ago.
remember it.
Like 15 years ago.
But yeah, we
were sitting in his condo.
Yeah.
Everything he owned came from his store.
Yes. Yeah, I think he said that in the interview. Yeah. It was great.
And I mean everything.
Oh yeah.
Including the clothes on his back.
Yep. Yeah, I believe it. So but that was a really this was a really a huge honor for me to be able to do. And all our podcasts, we basically open mic it. We like I said to Adam when we were waiting, we cut off here because of the timeline. But I have like 15 tabs of things that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk to you about Crane's General Store in Missouri. That's boots, bullets, breeches, and bologna comparing general stores
just
around
like
the
the
country.
main store with
Yeah.
bride gowns
The
and
bridal
gear
gowns,
and-
exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
So I want to get into all that stuff, and I'm like, man, where did the time go? So we have to do this
I'll
again.
tell you what, guys, if you standing invitation, if
Yeah.
you want to have me back, I will find the time to do it.
No doubt about it. We absolutely
I will find
do.
the time to do it. I
And-
absolutely love talking to you because you love what you do.
Yeah.
And that makes all the difference.
Yeah. Well, I was going to tell you, you haven't aged when you said 30 years. And I think that a lot of that is.
Well, as the Irish say, Josh, God love you for a liar.
Yeah. Well, when you love what you do, it doesn't age you as fast, I believe.
Well,
I mean, it's
I
aging
think
me a little bit, but I blame that on my kids.
I think there's something to that. I do. I
Yeah.
do. But I love the fact that you guys love what you do.
Yeah.
And what you do is you're doing some terrific stuff here. And
Yeah.
I've been very impressed. And I would be happy to come back.
Well, we'll get your address. We'll get you some books and some T-shirts for you to give to folks over the holidays and have for yourself. And we'll schedule
it.
another one. Appreciate you.
You
And
got
thank you for giving us some extra time. And that will do it for this episode. This was just such an amazing opportunity that, I talk about things and I don't want to say manifest, but I told myself a long time ago I'd have something to do with Chronicle at some point in my life, and to have someone that's of legendary
Geez,
status.
and all it
with
ended up being was talking to Ted
Reinstein. That's a big deal. It's a big deal for me. So I appreciate it. And
thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode with Ted Reinstein. We were really honored and excited. Both Adam and I are super fans of Chronicle. So to have him on and to just have such an easy conversation that flowed with no really prepared questions was pretty extraordinary and a great opportunity. It's funny, just 5 years ago, I was probably dealing with one of the worst days of my life, losing my job that I considered a career for 17 years, and Christmas of COVID. And if you were to tell me that 5 years later, I could tell you that I did things like run a Spartan race with Joe DeSena, or meet Santa Claus and have his Santa suit, or have Ted on the podcast, someone that I watched as a young adult, and loved the show and the programming and what they did, because they made news fun. And it wasn't necessarily the news that we think of. It was the sharing stories of positive impact and the differences that people can make. I would have told you were crazy. I would have thought that this was not something that was in my wheelhouse, or even being in the ECAT studios and having a relationship with Adam where he's wearing the Be Awesome shirt every time I come in and taking this thing full on, helping out and getting guests. I mean, I just have some of the most amazing people during this holiday season that I'm so grateful to have, and realize that, even when things are not so good, it doesn't last. And for you to just keep pushing and keep plugging, because and have the greatest people that you can around you, because that's when things really make a difference, and can help you, and always wish for things. I said this. Chris Mills from Shoveltown Flag was on Chronicle a couple of years ago, and I told him that that was one of my things, was to have something to do with Chronicle at some point, and just to have one of their journalist reporters, people that I watched on our podcast. That's pretty darn cool. I did the same thing with Joe DeSena with Spartan. I didn't even know who he was. I just listened to him on a podcast, as you heard in the episode. I said, I got to meet that guy someday. When you put those things in place and you put that in your head, something does happen. And whether it's effort, whether it's luck, whether it's a little bit of effort and a little bit of luck, a lot of times that stuff works out. And for me, it's worked out extraordinarily in so many different ways. And not be scared to reach out and to talk to people, and to be willing to get rejected. It's maybe I learned that at the junior high school dances, that rejection happens. And in those days, it happened often, and it still happens today. But I'll tell you, if you put yourself out there, and one of the things that Ted said is to be, genuinely interested in people's stories. Everybody's got one. So, be willing to listen to the story and get past just, hey, how are you doing? Learn about people, because there's extraordinary people all around us. And I think that that's something that Chronicle has shared with me over the last 40 or so years. And it's a TV show, but it really is one of those positive, feel good, learn about all things New England. And we do live in a very, very special place. And Easton in particular, and this is on ECAT, Easton's a very special place that sometimes we take for granted. And, this upcoming lighting of the Rockery, this will probably air after it. That's a wonderful yearly tradition, and our 300-year anniversary. All the things that this community is doing this year, I hope that we carry that past this year. We make every year the 300th year, where we're celebrating our community and who we are, our residents, and caring for each other, because it's really kind of special. And I really hope to see that continue far beyond this year, because the world is definitely a scary place for a lot of people right now. And we just need to look out for one another a lot more than we have in the past, and make it a consistent daily effort. And hopefully we can start to see things better. Wrapping up, I just want to wish everybody happy holidays. This is Be Awesome's 7th year in business, going into our 8th, and we've gone from a merchandise and podcast company to merchandise, podcast, keynotes, paid keynotes, to merchandise, podcast, paid keynotes, trainings, and then a book. And I'm in the process actually of writing my second book, which was in design to be the first book, which is If You Don't Care, You Don't Count, a salesperson's journey to true fulfillment, not fortune. So that's hopefully going to come out in 2026, but my book was supposed to come out in 2018, and it didn't come out till 2025. So hopefully it's not that long, but it comes out here sooner than later for you, and it's more on the business side of my life and my career. So happy holidays to everyone. Thank you for your support. As always, you can buy our books, buy our merchandise right on beawesome.com. If you want the book faster and you don't want it personalized, you can buy it on Amazon. And we really just appreciate all the support. This was a grassroots effort that was grown and created, curated in large part with things that you've done and helped us with. So can't thank you enough for that. And we look forward to, if I don't have another podcast this year, Happy New Year, and look forward to seeing you in 2026.
Coming to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work. Just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.